Hello everyone, Christina here. Welcome back for day 7 of birthday month. Today I'm going to be creating this really cute card with this girl on it and a very interesting greeting. You'll see it when we get there, like what exactly happened with it, but I'm going to walk you through it. I'm using this stamp set from the Greeting Farm called Anya Combo. It's not sold anymore, but these individual images I think might still be available on the Greeting Farm website. If I find the one I've used today, I'll link to it. But basically, every once in a while, the Greeting Farm comes out with these big jumbo stamp sets that are usually limited edition. So this is the image I'm going to be using today, the girl with the really long haired pigtails. And I thought I would do sort of a tall, skinny card with the girl on top and then this stacked greeting down below. So that actual greeting comes from a die set from Honeybee. It has a kind of a script, happy and then birthday. And I just thought this would go really well with that girl right on top. They were kind of the same width, and I thought it lent itself to this card design. So I'm stamping the image of the girl in intense black ink from Simon Says Stamp. I'm going to be coloring with my Olo markers today, so I needed to use an alcohol marker friendly ink, and intense black is just that. So I stamped my image onto some Copic Express-It cardstock. It's a really nice cardstock. It has a little bit of a coating to it, so the ink doesn't absorb quite as quickly as my other favorite cardstock for alcohol marker coloring. I like both. I like this cardstock as well as Neenah Classic Crest Solar White, but just for the heck of it, I decided to use the Express-It paper today. So there's my image, and I have this little pack of colored images that I keep with my markers, just like when I've done some practice around some different references for different color combos. So I have that at the side of my work surface here, and I'm going to be referencing it as I color this image. Because I did stamp it multiple times to get a really solid line, I was worried that the ink wasn't completely dry. And when we get to the coloring, you'll see that it wasn't. I have a little bit of smearing, but as long as you heat set it, usually that helps. I guess I just didn't dry it long enough. So I'm going to go in here and start coloring with my Olo markers, and I'll turn on some music. So enjoy. coloring my image and cutting it out and then kind of painting the white edges of the cardstock with a black marker, I then wanted to make a rainbow area to cut out my greeting. So I kind of marked on a paper the height of my greeting, and then I used some rainbow markers, some colors from my Olo marker collection to color that all in. And I just did horizontal stripes. But after I cut out the greeting, I realized that because of the design of this greeting, that there really wasn't much red showing, and I really love red. It's one of my favorite colors. So I decided to redo this again, and this time I traced around that die cut greeting a little bit closer so I could see exactly where things were going to be cut. And then I came in and used those same exact colors, and I'll have them on screen so if you need to reference them. I used those same colors and I did kind of a wavy line. And I also made sure that the lines were not quite as thick so that I could have multiples of some of the colors. So the colors that are going to be at the far corners, they're kind of repeated on each corner. And then the colors in the center would be there as well. I really love how this looked. I've never done anything quite like this before, but it turned out great. And I think I'm going to be using this technique with other die cut greetings in the future. So after I colored that in, then I brought my die over and ran that through my Anna Griffin Empress machine. And once everything was cut, I was pleasantly surprised to see how well this worked. I had a suspicion that it would work well, but I did not even realize how well it would look. I mean, look at that. It looks so fun. So then I cut the same greeting out of some white cardstock 3 additional times. And I stacked up each of the die cut greetings just with a little bit of glue in between, and then put that very colorful die cut right on top. This is going to give quite a bit of dimension to my greeting. I think I probably could have just glued it directly onto the card front as well, but sometimes I can't resist stacking up die cuts like this, especially when I know it's just going to look so good. So after I had everything stacked and glued, then I kind of cleaned up the edges with a craft pick, just getting rid of some of that glue that squidged out the edges. I'm going to use the Balloons and Banners 3D embossing folder from Spellbinders. And I've got some white cardstock here. I'm just using a wet baby wipe, like straight out of the package, to dampen both sides of my cardstock. This is going to help give it a little bit more give as it's pressing this design into the paper. So then I use my Spellbinders Platinum 6 to run that through. I like to use the Platinum 6 with embossing folders. I think it works a little bit better than my Anna Griffin Empress. So I have both machines for those purposes. So here's that beautiful design. I think it looks so great. And I started assembling my card design right on top of that embossed background. I used some honeybee glue and my tweezers to get this position just right underneath where I will soon be adhering this girl. So I'm gluing that on, and after I had each segment of the greeting kind of glued on, I did put a heavy paperweight on top to help kind of press it down into that textured background. I used some foam tape behind the girl and peeled off the release paper and then put her right above that greeting. And she nestles in right on top. At this point, I decided I wanted to cut off the sides of my card just to make it a little skinnier. So I took it to my paper trimmer and I actually cut it down to about 3.5 inches wide. And that was the perfect size for me. So it was a 5x7 card and I just lopped off the sides. So I did that to my card base as well. I just cut a little bit off each side. And then I used some Tombow Extreme adhesive and adhered my card design to that card front. Now you could call it a day at this point. You could say my card's done, it's finished, but I thought having some embellishments to sort of look like confetti would be fun. So I'm using this confetti mix or sequin mix from Lucy's Cards. Unfortunately, she shut down her shop. So she's not around anymore, but I have such a large collection of all of her sequin and kind of pearl embellishment mixes that I think I will be just using them up until the end of time. So just basically really colorful half pearls, and there's some gems in there as well. I use this pick and stick tool from Gina K to pick up those embellishments and then glue them down onto my card design. At this point, I decided to add some glossy accents. So I kind of squeezed that out right on top of her glasses. And I was hoping that it would sort of disguise some of that smearing that happened when I was coloring over those areas. And I think it really did help. I then grabbed a Wink of Stella glitter brush pen or a shimmer brush pen. And I must have squeezed it a little bit too much, like there wasn't much coming out. And so I squeezed it just a little bit and it brought out a ton. And this is where I learned a very valuable lesson, which is don't ever do that. I didn't realize it would be such a big issue. But as you can see, as I add more of this on, suddenly it starts to eat away at that Copic coloring, or it just becomes super thick on top. I'm not entirely sure what happened, but everything sort of went pastel. And I was thinking, what in the world happened? So then I decided to bring the glossy accents back in on top. I thought maybe a little bit of moisture would bring the brightness back. And that did help to a certain extent. And you'll see in my final photos, once the glossy accents is dry, that it still does have a little bit of that faded look. It's almost like a weird watercolory look. But you know what? I think it still looks great. And in the end, no one who receives this card will know what it looked like before that happened. So it doesn't really matter. But anyway, here we're going to see the finished card, and you can see how those colors still look like they're kind of faded away, kind of distressed. Interesting effect with that Wink of Stella. Thanks so much for watching today. Everything I've used is linked down below in the video description. If I'm able to find that same stamp image at the grading firm, I'll link to that. But if not, I'll link to some similar images if you're interested. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you soon for my live video on Monday at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Thanks for joining me.